Hi everyone, this is Miss Yanasek, and we are looking today at the Unit 2 Part 1 test review. It's going to be split into two videos, so make sure you watch both. This first video is going to be just on domain and range, the front of the test review. Okay, so the idea is that you pause the video, try the problem on your own, and then unpause it to see the answers to each question. So right now, take a moment and try problem number 1 on your own. Pause the video and then unpause it to see what the answer is. Okay, so you can see here the domain of this graph is from -6 to 0. Remember that domain are the x's. And I tried to treat this like what you'll see on the test where it's a drop down to fill in those two blanks. So the first blank is that the x's are greater than or equal to -6. And the x's also have to be less than 0. So they have to fit somewhere between those two. And you see I circled them. On the test, it will be a drop-down menu. So the range is going to be similar. Okay, but the range are the y's. Remember that. So if I'm thinking of y's, I'm looking up to down. You can see my lowest y value is -3, and my biggest y value is -1. Okay, so how I would write that using inequalities, I'd put a y in the middle with the lowest y value first, the biggest on the right. The -3 has an open circle, and the -1 has a closed circle. So now once again, let's think about how to read that. If we start with the y in the center, my y's have to be greater than -3 and less than or equal to -1. So greater than -3 and less than or equal to -1. Okay, and remember on the test, this would be a drop-down menu. Okay, make sure to always read whether it's asking for domain or range. Now go ahead and try number 2, pause the video, and we'll go over it in just a moment. Okay, looking at problem number 2, in this particular problem, you have Alexis who's going to a fair. It costs $20 to get in, and the rides are $1.50 each. They gave us a wonderful equation there, y equals 150x plus 20 for $20. X is the number of rides. So keep in mind domain is x and range is our y's. So our domain is literally 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we stop at 6 because it says at the very bottom, you can see underlined in red, that she cannot ride more than 6 rides. So the least she could ride is 1 and the most she could ride is 6. So how much would that cost? Okay, so if I were using this equation to help me, 1.5 or $1.50 times 0 rides plus $20 is $20. So for 0 rides, she still has to pay to get in, remember, even if she doesn't have any rides. Now, instead of replacing x with 0, replace it with 1. So for 1 ride, it would be $21.50. And then replace that x value with 2, and so on. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to write down the answers for that. So that's 1 ride. 2 rides would be $23. 3 rides would be $24.50. 4 rides would be $26. 5 rides would be $27.50. And 6 rides would be $29. And remember, all I did was I used that equation and I replaced the x with the number of rides. So you'd fill it right there in that blank. Okay, so in this case, we need to look at this problem. Notice I circled that it is asking for range. So our actual answer is right here. That's the answer. Not the domain, not 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because that's the x's. It even told you what the x and the y represent. Okay. So now let's go ahead and look at the next couple problems. Try questions 3 and 4 right now. Go ahead and pause the video. Okay, you can now see the answer to number 3. The domain you can see in green. The smallest x value was -3, and notice it had a closed dot. And the biggest x value was 1, and it had an open dot. So you can tell the differences in the two symbols. One of them is less than or equal to, and the other one is less than. The range are the y's, so my lowest y goes first. It's always least to greatest. So -7 went first, and my highest y value was 5. And note that because of the open dot, it has less than, and the closed dot at -7 got less than or equal to. Okay, so most of our graphs, like question 1 and question 3, have a beginning and an end. But with question number 4, we have 2 graphs that don't have an end. I don't see another point. I only see 1 point. And so that's our biggest issue on these ones, is that we don't see it. So on the test, you will have problems like this where you don't see an endpoint, like right here. So maybe I'm going to draw a little arrow to remind myself that it keeps going. Okay. So let's find our domain. So first, what is the x value of that 1 point you have? It is -3. So I'm going to write x. I'm going to write -3 next to it, but I'm leaving a space. Now the question is, on that graph, are my x values on that line, are they all bigger than -3, or are they all less than -3? It is an open circle, so I know I'm either going to use less than or greater than. Okay, so when I'm thinking of x's, I'm always thinking left to right, and this arrow is going to the right. Numbers get bigger going to the right. So I'm going to use the greater than symbol. Every single point on this line has an x value that's greater than -3. But when we look at the range, I put a y. My biggest y value is 2. And I just said it, my biggest y value is 2. That's the highest it goes. That means all of my y's are less than 2 because it's pointing downward. Y's are up and down like the y-axis. Because it's pointing down, all my y's are below 2. So we use the less than symbol. Remember, if you're not sure which symbol is less than and which one's greater than, make it into the word less, because really the less than symbol is a squished L. Okay? So go ahead and pause the video and try the second problem, and then unpause it to check your answer. Okay, everyone, so make sure to check your answers. You can see that since my x's, the graph is going to the right, all my x's are greater than -3 because the arrow is going to the right. And then the range, because my arrow is also pointing up, my y's are all greater than 2 this time. My arrow is not pointing down, it's pointing up. So my y values are all greater than 2. They are not equal to 2 because there's this open circle at 2. Okay? That is the end of the domain and range section of the review. Like I said, I made a second video for the back of the review, so make sure to watch that video as well. And I will have a study session after school today, the 28th, Thursday, from 4:15 to 5:15. And I'll also have just normal tutoring tomorrow morning starting at 8 o'clock. Okay? Have a great day, guys. Study for your test, and I hope to see you in tutoring or at our study session.